It's not easy being a boy. If you're a follower of mine, you probably already know that I don't believe it's easy to be a girl either. But I don't have any experience being a girl. But I've been a boy for as long as I can remember. Much metaphorical ink has been spilled lately on the reasons why men, particularly young men, particularly non-college educated men, often white men, tend to vote for people who make the rest of us go, dude, what the hell? But remember, it's not easy being a boy. In Bible college, I remember one of my biblical studies professors talking about how in other countries, boys who are friends often hold hands when they go out. They'll walk down the street holding each other's hands. They'll often hug each other and sit in public with their arms around each other, and sometimes they even kiss. And these aren't gay men, these are just men with close friends. I remember my eyes going really wide upon hearing this. I'd never thought about it before, but in the Western world, male touch is assumed to be dangerous, and not just towards women. I remember realizing that the primary ways that it was socially acceptable for me to touch my male peers was either to hit them or do sports. Suddenly, all of those TV shows where men talked about how important a proper handshake was read a little differently. Women? Women are allowed to touch, to hug, to play with someone's hair. Women's touch is generally not seen as dangerous. Now, again, this isn't a competition. This isn't going to launch into some rant about how women secretly have it easier. That's not the point. This is not a competition. But if you're a woman, odds are you do not understand what it is like to be touch starved. You may not touch people often, but odds are if you don't, that's a choice you make. And you may not even see yourself as a very touchy person. But unless you're a hermit, I can promise that you've probably hugged and casually touched far more people in one day than most of the men you'll meet will in a month. And in normal situations, touch is good for us. Obviously, there are bad touches, but safe, non-threatening touch involuntarily releases lots of hormones in our brain that boost our mood, make us feel safe, make us feel like if something goes wrong, someone will take care of us. They let us feel like we belong. The fact that we had to talk about that fact in order to properly discuss a number of biblical passages was probably one of the major reasons there was so much dude on dude cuddling in Bible college. Also wrestling, also hitting each other, and then wrestling, and then cuddling. When all of these touch-starved young men finally ended up in an atmosphere where people even acknowledged that men touching each other in other contexts could be okay, for a lot of guys, the floodgates opened. It's not like dorm was suddenly constantly huggy, but on weekends or when it was cold or rainy outside, or when it hadn't been sunny for a while, it wasn't uncommon to walk into Chris and Dan's room and find two guys playing Halo and four guys spooning. A lot of guys don't get that experience. For them, enjoying any touch might mean that you're gay, and you can't be gay because it's a whole other thing. So just don't touch anyone. Just be a rock. Be alone. People talk about the horribly stupid and toxic notions that women are told constantly, but we typically don't talk about the messages that young men are given. Heck, while advertisers and Instagram may tell developing women all kinds of horrible things, at least adult women have conversations with younger women. At least sometimes it's kind of a biological necessity. Guys, not so much. We have universal experiences, but we generally don't give each other a heads up about them for some reason. I've never heard anyone tell me that their dad told them that there was a good chance that once puberty hit, you would be terrified to stand up in public because your nethers had randomly betrayed you for no good reason, and it was gonna be embarrassing. Boys are expected to reach things off shelves. They are frequently given the message that they are not desirable, and the only way that they can be desirable is to acquire, whether that be wealth or status symbols, and maybe they need to work out a lot so that they can look like a movie star who does not just look that way because they hit the gym a lot. I've actually heard trans people talk about their experience of transitioning and then experiencing how differently they're treated once they pass for the other gender. You have trans men who, when they presented as a woman, everyone wanted them and wouldn't leave them alone. And now all they get is rejection. And on the flip side, you have trans women who remember getting ignored by the overwhelming number of people they'd message online when they presented as a man. But now that they've got the hair and the nails and the makeup, they're bombarded with attention, including a lot of it that they don't want. Add to that the discussions we currently have around gender. If you notice, a lot of the biggest anti trans voices are primarily aimed at trans women. You have men claiming that trans women are dangerous and have ulterior motives, and you have cisgender women, often surprisingly queer cisgender women, who go out of their way to ensure that trans women know they're unwanted in women's spaces. Being a woman is special and unique. It's very rare to hear someone on the news talk about how they think trans men aren't real men and they shouldn't be allowed to be talked about as men. In fact, you can find thousands of different, contradictory yet strongly held beliefs about what it means to be a woman. Much of it goes to biology, but there are also a great number of positive assumptions that people have about anyone who is seen as female. Now, good luck living up to even half of those, but there's a clear idea of what a woman is. What is a man? We can probably say that he's manly. We have a lot of definitions for what manly means, but good luck hitting any of them. Manly is, in many ways, it's something that no man is kind of supposed to ever feel like they've attained. Like it's like a goalpost that's just always moving. But on the other hand, women get told that they've successfully womaned fairly often. It's not always a good way to hear it, it's not always helpful, but it happens. I was once in a training program for ministry that was mostly women, and I noticed that there was this cultural norm where these middle-aged women would greet and offer superficial affection to one another by telling each other that they've lost weight. Now, whether anyone had lost weight, that didn't seem to be important. But I noticed eventually, as they began to see me as one of them, they started telling me that they thought I had lost weight. To be clear, I had never lost weight. I was under so much stress. I am quite confident in saying that I never lost any weight. But as they saw me as one of their own, oh, there was also a lot of backstabbing and gossip, but also a lot of superficial compliments that meant nothing. But they did affirm me. Men are never told they're pretty or beautiful, or at least most men aren't. And handsome is not the same. To be clear, feel free to resent being called pretty or beautiful. You are more than your outward appearance. You also take for granted these sorts of compliments if you're a woman because you hear them often enough that they become annoying. Do you know how many straight men love when a gay man flirts with them? A lot. Partly because I like to flirt with straight men. I avoid being creepy, but flirting is fun, especially when you know that when they're not interested, it's because they're not gay, not because they're not into you. But if you tell a straight guy that he's attractive because he's got a nice jawline or good shoulders, something specific, especially if it's something that they didn't really have any control over, like, you think I have a good collarbone? I can't even exercise my collarbone. I'm hot if I try or not. Now, this isn't to say that men don't have male privileges. Yes, socially, many people are conditioned to trust deep voices and a bit of facial hair. Yeah, he may get credit for stealing your ideas and presenting it as his. Like, none of this negates any of that. But no matter how many promotions a guy gets, no matter how many awards they get, no matter how rich they get, no matter if they get a big, beautiful trophy wife under a proud flag, at the end of the day, for whatever reason, there is a distinction for so many boys who never get taught how to know they're loved and that they themselves have value. No matter their achievements, no matter what they mean to anyone else in their life, at their core, they still see themselves as needing to earn being desired because they themselves are supposed to be unwanted and undesirable. But what if I want your vote? That means I want you. If I talk a bit about how hard you work, if I acknowledge that you deserve affection but don't receive it, that you've been screwed over, because by the way, we've all been screwed over. Sure, some things are easier for you. You have advantages, but let's not talk about those. Let's talk about how you've been taken advantage of, and how if you need help, there's nobody who is interested in taking care of you. I'm going to say that's not fair, but I'm not going to teach you that you have value, because if you know you have value, you don't need to find your identity in me. We will never talk about the people who tell you to eat cake while they destroy every bit of the social safety net that you need if things go wrong. I'm just going to tell you that you can be great. You can be first for a change. You can be wanted because I want you. The other party, they keep talking about how many women they have. Women have never wanted you. I've got a deep voice. And all the women in our party, they dye their hair blonde. If you join us, you can belong too. You don't have to work out your shit. You don't need to think about why you think the way you think. Here's a list of our enemies. Pick one. That's all you need. Who needs happiness? Who needs wholeness? Who needs to like themselves? You don't need happiness. You have politics now. Now open your wallet, put up this lawn sign, and go scream at someone on the internet. Now you belong.